handle the truth. Answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Greetings, everyone. It is raining in the the studio today. Speaking of studio, we're going to talk about a film production studio with Jody Ledgerwood, and I have three amazing guests coming in today. I admire them all. I adore them all. They're all patriotic and all, Jody is advocate for Free Canada. Chris Wiesdorf, a brilliant legal mind and case law investigator, and Vince Gircys, of course, a 32-year retired forensic investigator who has, they've all been on my show more than once, and I appreciate them all for spending time with me. I see them as peacemakers and with courage. It does take courage to stand up against tyranny. Matthew chapter 5, verse 7 says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." And that's who we have here today, the peacemakers, trying to be proactive in making that change. I'm going to bring Jody in first and ask her, because rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God, would you say Canada is under a controlled demolition?
That's a great question. And my answer is absolutely. It's in a controlled demolition. Anyone who's ever read Agenda 21, which starts out of perhaps a 150-page document, but it references so many other past documents that by the time you're done, your pile is probably 5,000 pages deep. But it references all the way back to, I believe Chris and I managed to go all the way back to, I think it was 1913, when the UN Agenda 20 actually came into fruition. And it all has to do with eugenics. It all has to do with a one world order, which, if anybody's paying attention to the political sphere, one world order is not a new thing in the last 5 years. It's not a new thing in the last 10 years. It's been mentioned, it's been talked about by many prime ministers, presidents throughout probably the last century. So this is not a new idea. However, they're getting closer and closer to perfecting the idea. And unfortunately, more and more people are falling for the idea due to a lot of the propaganda and mind control that we are exposed to. A lot of that through our TV, our media, our social media. So is it a controlled demolition? Absolutely. It is such a well thought out plan, centuries old. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I think we have the same answer. All right, my next question goes to our beautiful friend, Vincent. The Parliament building has scriptures all over it. And a lot of people don't know that, but it's every scripture I'm going to say today is from Parliament building. So it's there. So Proverbs 29, verse 18, where there is no vision, the people perish. Mm-hmm. Do you think our government has vision, Vince?
I'm gonna wrap this up with Jody's response. First of all, I'd like to chime in on that first question that you gave to Jody. Sure. I'm not disagreeing with what Jody said whatsoever. but I see it more like a controlled rust. I look at, a car that I have that's, we take care of our vehicles, but all of a sudden your car's 10, 12, 14 years old, and you start to notice a little bit of rust on it. And the next year there's more rust. And within 3 years or maybe even 4 years, the thing's a rust bucket and it just came on, and you don't really notice it every day when you look at it. It's slow. Whereas a demolition is something that happens instantaneous. And people
Yeah,
maybe don't relate to it because they don't see an instantaneous change. But it's
that's
certainly corrosive. It's bad. It's falling apart. It's time for a serious, serious course correction. So I don't disagree with anything Jody said. I just wanted to add that to that first.
no, I think that's brilliant. That's a brilliant way to look at it. Yeah,
But
and yes,
no, yeah,
demolition is usually quick, right? So
yeah.
yeah,
So not to distract from that question that you asked me,
no,
but
it's
when
okay.
it comes to the scriptures that are in Parliament, um, though they were put there at a certain time when
Hmm.
our society behaved a certain way, when our culture was predominantly 99% predominantly Christian in this nation.
Right.
We
Yeah,
were founded on the Christian principles,
indeed.
and so we are certainly not there anymore. Even though the inscription on our Parliament buildings was there for a reason, it was a warning to the future. And if we have not heeded that warning, which we have not over time, we are now in this predicament. I noticed when you started your show, it's the truth table. It's all about truth, and I think maybe for the first short bit of this program, can we talk about that? Can we talk about the truth and what
Hmm.
is truth? Because I've woken up considerably over the last 6 years. Since the beginning of COVID, I was living in a slumber. I had just retired from the police service, and life was mine to do with as I wished into my retirement years. But I had reached a part, I'd say it was about a year or two prior to the onset of COVID, where I had a very serious conversation with a few friends during a social time period. And we were talking about certain people in positions of leadership and how we found that there was just some unsettling things that were taking place within our nation and around the world. And the question came to who really runs your nation and who runs the United States and who runs these other nations, and how does that actually work? And I said, I'm going to make it a point in my retirement to try to figure this out, because I knew at that point that things are not run the way we think they do, the way we believe in our personal truth for how we see things. And if you turn
Hmm.
on your television every day and get a little bit of the news every day or read the paper, we have this preconceived notion that based on the information that we have been provided with as to how the world works. And I came to realize it does not work the way we think it does or the way we are told that it does. So, what is truth? Is it your perception, your perspective on how you see the world based on
Hmm.
information that you were provided? And that's fair to say that that is your truth. But
Yeah.
uh, you need to come to terms with the fact that a lot of the information you were provided is false, and that
Hmm.
more so, a lot of information is not provided. It is intentionally being kept from you.
Yes, that's true. And yes, we do believe we trust our teachers, we trust our parents. I mean, even our parents could have been lied to, and they're doing it, not deliberately to deceive us, but they've also been lied to. So getting to the truth has many layers. You have to be forensic, and that's why I think I like you so much, because we're both very forensic thinking. We really want to get at the core of where's the problem. How can we resolve this problem? And another quote, Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of us but to do justly? And these are all on the Parliament building. So I mean,
They are, Paul. Just a correction there. You know, the term forensic science, forensic means the forum. It's combining really two terms, forum and science. It's bringing science into the forum, science into the courtroom. And that's what forensic is. But I have to say, I've met so many people at the beginning and throughout the COVID era that are truck drivers, farmers, everyday people. These are not forensic
scientists.
experts.
No.
And they themselves are very aware of what is going on in the world. You don't need to be a forensic investigator to see what's going on. Forensics really helps when you have that experience to bring it into the courtroom to understand how to unpack this in a court of law. But you don't have to bring it into a court of law to make it legal or to make it true, to understand that what you're seeing and experiencing and what you have come to be aware of based on information. More so, it just takes alternative sources of information and news. So if, as Jody alluded to, Agenda 2021, Agenda 2030, these international agendas, they are very real. Most people are not aware of them, and who the powerful people are and very influential people are internationally that can have a lot of sway as to how your nation is going to proceed into the future and currently, and how we are tied to these international agreements and or other manipulative techniques that have taken place on our elected officials.
Well, I can see clearly the path to you will own nothing, but how can they guarantee that everyone could be happy? How could that be a part of that platform? And to include happy, how can you guarantee happiness unless you're using, a chemical, scientific drug to make sure people are always happy? So I don't understand that part. I can understand you won't own anything. That's pretty clear to me. I think this war kind of showed us exactly how fragile we could be financially, the gas prices, food prices. Even the food that we're eating is not really food anymore. They're putting things in there that don't belong. So to go off a little bit, I mean, do you see how they can guarantee happiness? Like, how can they do that?
Think about all the bills that are currently going through our legislature with regards to censorship. If you're not allowed to have a negative thought, a hateful thought, a dissenting thought, then the impression or assumption is that you're happy. If you're never allowed to vocalize something other than what the government has told you, then everybody assumes everything is fine, everyone's happy, everybody's satisfied, right? So I think that's where you get you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, because you won't be allowed to complain about anything anymore with all the censorship bills, because complaining could be an insult to injury on somebody else, or somebody else might take it offensively. Therefore, you go to jail. We've already seen on social media police knocking on people's doors, and the legislation hasn't quite passed yet, but we're already seeing police officers knocking on people's door based on what they've posted on social media, upsetting somebody else. So if you're never allowed to upset, then the assumption is you must be satisfied or happy. So I don't think you necessarily need a drug. And then that being said, if you want to go to the other side of the coin, we know there was a mass experimentation that was done not just on Canada, but on the world in general. We don't know the full implications yet of what that mass experiment is going to entail, or what the outcome of that is going to be. And, if you kind of listen to different conspiracy theorists, conversations, some people are thinking that experimentation may have been some sort of a sleeper cell. Or if you watch the Black Mirror episodes, or you look into Neuralink and you read up on noospheres and hive minds, you start looking at this mass experimentation is that part of the noosphere? Is that part of the hive mind? And if we're all hive minded and it's all connected to 5G, is it just a flip of the switch and all of a sudden you forget you're miserable and you're
Mm.
magically happy? We don't know yet. We don't know what is coming down the pipe for us.
I think that's quite possible. I think that makes a lot of sense to me because the technology is not understood. I have done a lot of research into it and what its potential, but it is a Department of Defense, DARPA situation. So I'm sure they aren't going to tell us everything. I'm worried about the police, really, Vincent, about are they willing to um, fulfill any mandates of martial law? Do you think they're prepared to just crack down on us again, like Ottawa?
Yeah, I think as we evolve as a culture and a nation, the idea of that is very, very far away. And I think for some people, they're very frightened about our near future and
Yeah.
what can happen very quickly because we saw that unfold during COVID, how in a very short period of time, less than a year, probably closer to 6 months, we
Hmm.
went from being a freedom loving culture to very submissive and compliant to being locked up in our homes. And the majority of people thought that was okay. And the majority of people, I have to tell you, that's where the fear comes from, more than the fear from totalitarian government, is an uninformed, uneducated, unintelligent public that feels that the necessity for trading their rights for freedoms is
Yeah.
would be necessary, and they're willing to do that when they just don't have the critical thinking skills. And it's very dangerous. I think that's the most frightening thing is what we've experienced from everyday people. If you don't have degrees in
Mhm.
psychology and you really never had that kind of close contact with your community until there's a crisis. Let's face it, if you're in a car and you're on a road trip with some of your so-called best friends and you're doing something and maybe you've known each other for 2, 3, 4 years, you went to college together, but all of a sudden you're faced with a crisis. There's a catastrophic event, the car rolls over, some kind of a major crisis. You'll start to see how your friends behave in a real serious crisis. And
Mhm.
some of them you'll never want to talk to again based on how they respond to this type of stimuli. And some of them will be your best friends for the rest of your life because you know they can keep their shit together and they
Yeah.
really can rationalize through these traumatic issues. Now, getting back to what you said earlier about Klaus Schwab and we'll own nothing and be happy. There are quite a few people. History has shown this for thousands of years that the rulers of this world live in the clouds and they're so far disconnected from the reality of everyday life that the rest of us have to live by. And when people make comments that we would see as being so stupid and so egregious, I'll own nothing and I'll be happy. I'm sorry, but we've moved away from serfdom to being able to actually own something, whether I own my own lawnmower or whether I own my own home. I really look after things when I own them. I take care of them
Hmm.
because I value them. And we know that if we had to share the communal lawnmower with everybody in our neighborhood, it's not going to last very long. It's going to get beat up. It's not going to be looked after, and nobody's going to like it or care about it. So
Yep.
Mhm.
we care about these things that we own, like a pet. If we had a communal pet, it's a little different. You bond. I'm not saying I bond with my property, but there is something about personal ownership that makes you feel a sense of entitlement that I worked for it. I put in my sweat equity into these things that I own, and they are mine to do with as I wish. Uh,
Hmm.
and we do care for those types of things, even our own personal clothing. I don't think you'd be caring for clothing if you shared it. And I think the idea there is that, well, you're going to be living in a beehive type of apartment. Everyone's going to be living in a 200 square foot cube, and,
Right.
and we're going to live that type of lifetime type of lifestyle, eating what kind of food they decide they're gonna, it's gonna be 10 times worse than spam in a can coming out at you.
Yes,
I don't know what that's supposed to look like, but it's
I know.
it's quite an ignorant comment for somebody like Klaus Schwab. But I can tell you that there's no question the manner in which we've seen our parliamentarians and our self-professed elitist judges, courts, anyone of some noble significance within our society, not just in Canada, but across the Western world, that they really believe this crap. They really buy into it, and they live in a completely, totally different world. And they get together on a regular basis and discuss the future of the world and how they see it unraveling. As Jody said, it's just UN agendas and other agendas.
Yes.
And we're living in totally different worlds. And we need to push back against that, because if you allow that to slip slowly by losing your rights through additional censorship laws and these hate laws that are coming, I just hate. The one thing I hate this.
I hate laws.
You should, if you emotionally say, listen, I live in a free world, and I do believe in natural law, where I don't take your stuff or touch your stuff, and don't take and touch my stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we'll all be happy that way. But there is a huge transformation that's taking shape across this planet. And I think anybody in your audience that's tuned into this will be aware to a huge degree of what's happening. And so there's a number of cases that maybe we're going to talk about today that Jody's familiar with and I'm familiar with. And, maybe people need to be brought up to speed on what's going on certain things in Canada that are affecting us all in that direction.
Yeah, and what precedent did it? Adam Skelly case, like what precedent was set for this? I listened to all 3 days, the testimonies, and I was thinking very positive. I thought this is amazing.
All of us were. We all walked out of the courtroom, congratulating everybody for sticking through the last 5-6 years and all the roadblocks and persevering, and having the courage and the strength to keep going and fundraising when it looked like the funds were never going to come. And Ian Perry, fantastic lawyer, and the faith he had in this case, even though we're $84,000 behind in legal fees, he kept going. He continued to trial. He threw everything at it at trial. We all came out feeling like we had been vindicated, like that something great was going to finally happen in the courts. The judge had us fooled to the point that we believed in her integrity. We believed in the rule of law again, that there was going to be some form of justice. And I feel like we just all got knifed in the back. That's exactly how I feel. Yeah,
because it was solid in my eyes, in my vision. She seemed, to be doing her job right and asking the right questions. So how she came up to that outcome, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Exactly. And, she published her decision. It was 48 pages. There is no way you can deal with a case of this magnitude with over 300 evidentiary studies that were submitted as evidence, with 6 expert witnesses, with the affidavits of Adam Skelly, with the affidavits of Eileen Davila, the affidavits of Mr. Hodge, Dr. Hodge, sorry, and the affidavit of Dr. Mark Trozzi. There is no way you could get through all of that evidence in what, a 2-week period. And in 48 pages. And the kicker is, when you actually read those 48 pages of her decision, she completely disappeared the evidence. She completely disappeared the expert witnesses, didn't even mention not one of them by name.
Wow. Incredible.
Right. And then she said she relied heavily on the evidence produced by Dr. Hodge. But here's the kicker. You read his testimony and his affidavits. He offered 0 evidence. In fact, he admitted under oath that he was not privy to the evidence. He was not sitting at the table that made the decisions. And none of the Oakes tests, so the accountability, the economic analysis, none of that was even in his mandate to even consider. And he also admitted he doesn't understand how restaurants operate. So what evidence did he put forward for the judge to rely on regarding the decisions that she made and the province, the City of Toronto, and the Toronto Public Health made? There was no evidence that was offered. And in a court of law, you can't assume evidence into being. It's either presented or it's not. And if it's not, you've got to assume it's not there because it was never presented. And in this case, for whatever reason, the judge assumed evidence that never existed.
So, Paul, to answer that question as well, and further to what Jody just said, and she's spot on the money there, absolutely correct, is, I can't come out and say that we have a crooked judge or we have a corrupt judge. But what I can say is you have to look, as Jody said, you have to look at the evidence that's been presented and the evidence that was not presented and the submissions of the judge and what was missing in that final summary and submission. So you'll have to draw your own conclusions and say what happened. And I think people are still wondering what happened. But we don't like to admit things to ourselves, but in being objective, and I'll say I was looking at this trial from a very objective position, and I pride myself in the entirety of my career. I believe that every time I testified as an expert that, are we going to win this case or not? And it wasn't for me about winning it. It was about, did I screw up in my evidence? Did I miss something? Did I forget something? So I'm very objective in monitoring my own testimony. And so when I look at other people's testimony, and in this particular court case, I'm just running a scorecard on what was submitted by the defense, what was submitted by the prosecution, and how is this going to tally up at the end? And so, as Jody had put it, I just can't believe that evidence that was tendered was completely disregarded with no explanation. I mean, we had full explanation of all evidence in the Emergency Measures Act case by Justice Mosley when he did a judicial review. He went through all the evidence on all sides and he weighed it very carefully and gave analysis to every point of evidence before he came up with his finding. And it was done, and it took about 200 pages. And it was done very, very professionally, very well. And I admire and appreciate that form of submission over a very short submission, leaving everything out. But in this particular case, you have to ask yourselves, Canadians need to ask themselves, what does that mean? What does it mean when they overlook all the strong supporting evidence and side with the no evidence?
Yeah.
That says something, and I don't want to say what it is, but it's very frightening to think
it
you live in a
is.
country. And if we compare this to a number of other cases by a number of other individuals in former law enforcement who have spoken out about this, or people in the justice system who have spoken out, we do not have a pristine justice system in this country. We no longer have the rule of law in this country. And so you shouldn't be surprised. I really wasn't surprised. I thought it was a slam dunk, but that decision just told me you can't believe that we don't have the rule of law and that we do have a functioning justice system at the same time. They conflict, and you can't believe both. So you've got to decide, what do I believe? And quite frankly, I do not believe that we have the rule of law. And if we were to spend some time, perhaps later on in this discussion, about the Emergency Measures Act decision going to the Supreme Court, I do not believe that we are going to win. Because I do not believe in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has shown us very clearly a number of times just how biased they are. And it's based on that bias that tells me they are not, we don't have a functioning justice system.
Correct. No. And the government made this announcement before Justice Lieber brought out or rendered her decision, stating that they were going to hide the evidence for the next 15 years of the harms that happened. And part of my conspiratorial brain is going, okay, did Justice Leaper get that message? Did she get the notification that, hey guys, we're going to disappear all the evidence for the next 15 years, which means any court that's currently in session where the evidence was brought forward needs to be disappeared? Is that why she left that out of her decision and decided not to look at it? Because there's no way you could look at 300 studies of evidence submitted and not rule the complete opposite of what she did. So is she following the directive that was put out all over media, all over the news from our government stating, we are going to pack away this evidence for the next 15 years and no one's going to be privy to that? So did she just follow orders? I don't know.
Oh, you're muted. Paul.
Muted, Paul.
We have to let the
Yes,
the
yes.
host
And
know
it's right
that
on.
he's muted.
It's right on Parliament Building, Proverbs 31, verse 9. Judge righteously.
Right. And I don't think we're seeing any judges judging righteously.
No.
At least not in the last couple of years. I think we've had one or two judges that really did a great thing, Justice Mosley being one of them. And look what they're doing to his decision. They are spending unnecessarily taxpayer money to take this decision that was very well thought out, very detailed, and trying to destroy it.
Yeah.
Why? And this is our parliament that is doing this. It is, His Majesty the King that is going forward, proceeding forward with the appeal. So are they judging righteously right now? No, they're not.
And I understand, Paul, that not everybody's going to dedicate the time to spend the 3 days to watch this entire trial that took place. A lot of people have a lot of other stuff on the go. But I do fault most Canadians for not participating in this, for not. I would just ask Canadians to remove their bias and say, whether it's a vaccine-related issue, whether it's a rights-related issue, can you just please listen and have the maturity to engage in a conversation with people about these issues? And some people don't present very well. We all know people in the so-called freedom movement who understand what's going on, but they're not very good at presenting it. Well, if you're going to watch a trial, you're going to watch the highlights of the best evidence being unpacked on both sides. Yes. And listen, follow one of these cases, follow Randy Hillier's case, follow the Emergency Measures Act case, follow the Adam Skelly case. And when you see the evidence that's presented, if you're being objective, you should be walking away shocked, because one day these issues are going to affect you as a Canadian. They're going to affect every Canadian, whether you got vaccinated or not, whether your restaurant was shut down or not. Every Canadian is suffering the consequences of what your government did and did not have to do, and did it deliberately and intentionally. And it caused harms, and it's still causing harms, and it's still causing trauma to most Canadians. So I really fault Canadians who are very dismissive and don't want to engage in these conversations and think there are more important things to discuss. It's going to come back, and it's going to really crush us as a nation and as a society and as a culture if we don't resolve these issues and get to the truth.
Going back to what Vince just said, by the judge deciding or rendering her decision in this fashion, this is something that is going to affect all Canadians for sure, because the Trespass Act that Eileen Davila used in order to have criminal charges pressed against Adam Skelly, she claimed to be the occupier of the restaurant because he was not home at the time. He was not on the premises at the time. So she was able to claim occupier status, which she doesn't have the authority to claim under the NHPPA. And under Trespass Act, the definition of occupier is someone who owns or rents the space. And somehow she managed to claim, because Adam was not in the premises at the time the trespass order was issued and the notice posted on his door, that she was now able to claim occupier status of that building and have him arrested the moment he entered it. And this is monumental for Canadians everywhere, because this means if you're not home, your residence can now be assumed by someone in authority and have you arrested the moment you try to walk through your door. That's what this decision just said to the public. And even Justice Leeper said that, this was an unprecedented act or action that Eileen Davila took, that a governing authority took. And by her substantiating that that was okay in her order, by citing for them, she just told every single Ontarian, and we know domino effect is going to happen, every Canadian out there, that if you're not home, the government can now assume your property, and it's perfectly legal. And if you try and open that door, you are now trespassing if there is a notice put on your front door. That's what this decision just said. You think you own your property. We know UNDRIP is coming around, and now we have this decision that has just said if you're not home, the government can assume occupier status of your property and kick you out.
It's disturbing. And then you got the Supreme Court are all appointed by their politicians that we trust so much. So, right? I mean, it seems like there's nowhere to turn. There's nowhere to go. No one to turn to. We don't have our judges. We don't have our police. We don't have our RCMP, our CSIS. But everyone I know is like you two. I would trust you in a government position to be righteous, to be transparent. It's like everyone I know is like that, except the people that are doing it. It's like, how did this happen unless they fixed the elections and brought their own people in to ensure that their plan 2030 would happen no matter what. And this was a little, crease in their plan. If they were to, overturn it, it would have set a precedent that would have protected us and business owners like Adam, because no one got sick. No one got sick from his food or for being close to each other. The masks didn't help anything. All these protocols were just a dictatorial exercise that made no sense. Logic was out the window. Nothing was based on logic or actual science.
Correct.
The virus is 1,000 times smaller than a hole in a mask, so it's junk science. And the fact that they used it and made it happen on a legal police level, where they included the police to enforce lock Adam's doors. I mean, it's like their own personal, brown shirts. Mm-hmm. It's terrifying. Do you think there's any chance that Canadians will be able to free themselves from this 2030 agenda, or are we doomed? I don't want to end.
Well, I got to say,
season with doom.
There is a lot of encouraging things, a number of encouraging things that are happening, that are taking place. So, for example, the National Citizens Inquiry, if you've been following that, which has several hearings per year on different subjects, it gives Canadians a voice to be heard, and a forum in which they can be heard and they can unpack the information that needs to get out to the public. And it is in fact out there. So if your audience isn't familiar with it, I highly recommend you look at the content that's being produced by the National Citizens Inquiry. Right now, there's the hearings that just took place in Kelowna 2 weeks ago are now on Are Farmers Safe in Canada and Is Our Food Supply Safe in Canada? Those hearings have concluded. I've been selected last year as a commissioner, one of 4 commissioners that listens to the evidence at the National Citizens Inquiry. There will be another hearing coming up in the near future, again on Are Farmers Safe in Canada? Last year, the entire year was dedicated to Are Children Safe in Canada? And prior to that, for 2 years, the hearings and the testimony was all about the COVID era, what took place, and what the government got wrong, what the government got right. And in all of these hearings, it's very telling. I'm going to say there's some bias there in the sense that members of parliament, local mayors, people local to the geographic area where the hearings are taking place, members of government are invited. They're sent summonses to attend and to testify and to take the opportunity to unpack whatever it is they want to unpack on these issues. And to date, very few. I believe there's 3 members of parliament across the country that have attended, mostly running as independents. And it's very rare, but they are given the opportunity to present, as are people from the health agencies. But it's very telling, the information that we extract. And this information is available to the public for free on their website. And it is a historical record keeping of what really transpired over this time frame, or what's happening in relation to these issues. Now, it's my understanding that at some time in the fall, I'm not sure what the date is, but the NCI will be holding hearings on the rule of law and the justice system in Canada. And at that time, I'm aware of a number of both active duty and retired police officers and members of our justice system that will be coming to the NCI or testifying with their identity concealed, if they're still currently working, about just how deep the problems are within our justice system in this country. And the fact that nobody in Parliament on any of our parties other than Maxime Bernier, nobody's talking about the National Citizens Inquiry. Nobody's bringing up this testimony. But when you talk about good people and bad people, or people who have integrity and don't, I'm not so sure. Maybe Jody and I, we might go to bed one night and somebody's going to put the pod beside our bed, and we'll wake up like the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and we'll be transformed to one of those creatures, right?
Yeah, it could happen to me too.
Well,
but leadership,
leadership
requires a moral duty.
Yes, it's a club, right? So they're in a different club. Their pay grade, their pay scale, and their commitments to their club take priority and precedence over the truth. And fortunately, there are still people on this planet that don't adhere to that ideology. And so the deeper they dig the hole, the harder it's going to be for them to climb out of it. And I have to say, on the optimistic side, the only thing they can do to keep a lie going is to put more lies on top of those lies. And eventually the house comes tumbling down. It always collapses. And it will happen sooner than later.
Well, I've watched your interviews, your testimonies on NCI multiple times, multiple years you've been there. And so I admire you very much, for being bold and courageous and sharing. It's just, is there any way that these testimonies can affect change, and to use the findings and the testimonies to actually make a change and restore the Canada we used to have? I mean, I'm hopeful.
I believe at some point there will be a change, and I believe there will be a catalyst required to bring that about. And I say that from historical relevance. If I really want to know what's going to happen in the future, I try my best to familiarize myself with the past and historical significances going back 1,000 to 5,000 years. of how did people get through this? How did people break through regimes that were collapsing like this, or maybe as I would put, are rusting out? And
Yeah.
we just can't tolerate that anymore. We need to fix our system because we're just living a lie on so many
Yeah.
levels that it's just not going to be able to bear its weight much longer. And that usually is precipitated by a financial collapse and a societal collapse. And I look forward to it in the sense that we need a change. We really do. And
Yeah.
our entire political landscape and structure needs to change. And we will go through some really hard times before that we come out of that on the other end. And I'm very attentive to it because I do have two children that are grown up. Now they're adults, but it doesn't matter how old they are or how old I am. They'll always be my children. And I think people that have children are very concerned about building a better world in the future, that we always want something better for our children. And I think a lot of psychopathic individuals in politics that are in very powerful places just happen to not have or legitimate children. And that's part of the problem.
I think good people are just not attracted to politics because of how ugly it is, and the mudslinging, and it's very childish. You watch Parliament, and a question is asked, and the answer, there's never an answer. It's just we did this and we did that. It's all deflecting, and it's so frustrating to watch. It's like, and banging on their desks and yelling and heckling. It's like, this is like a kindergarten. Where's the adult in the room here?
But it's good theater.
It is theater.
And that's all it is. And, you know, I learned this when I ran for the federal election, sitting up in the real life debates, and you've got, you know, all the other people sitting beside you running for their parties. I ran as an independent, so I had no scripts. So when they asked me a question, I actually answered from my heart or my brain, right? Depending on conversations I'd had with the constituents. However, you had all the board parties sitting there, and every single one of them had a script for the question asked. And you would watch them furiously flip through their binders looking for the appropriate script. And there was twice where we were asked questions where my colleagues did not have a script. And they ended up not answering the question. Instead, they went off on like personal stories of, oh, well, I did a favor for them in Parliament. And one of the gentlemen, Philip Lawrence, who is a conservative sitting in our Parliament right now, he actually admitted he didn't have a script for one of the questions that was asked. And he admitted that what we see is all theater. He actually used those words. What you see is all theater. That's not real. When the cameras go off, we're all friends and we go out for beers and we help each other move and we all have a good laugh over what just happened in the House. So we have to understand that if we are looking at politicians who are part of the party process, they are told what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. They are not free thinkers, and they might meet with their constituents, but at the end of the day, they take nothing back with them. Because unless it fits with the script that they're handed that day, it is ignored. So our politicians don't care about us. They care about the paycheck they get. They care about the benefits they receive, and they care about the pension plan, amazing pension plan that they're going to retire with. That's what they think about. And I'm sure a lot of them get into politics with these wonderful ideas of what it is, not quite understanding you have a party whip for a reason, and it's called a whip for a reason. Nobody wants to be whipped on that whipping pole in front of everybody. And we know what happens when you dissent from whatever the party whip script they gave you that day. We know because it happened to Randy Hillier. We know because it happened to Rick Nichols. We know because it happened to Belinda Carriolius. If you go against the script or vote against the script, you lose your seat. And the next election that rolls around, miraculously, you don't win your seat back either. So our politicians are not actually working for us. And I'd really like to know how we stop that pen from writing checks to the politicians and giving them raises over and over again and all of Canadian taxpayer monies out to foreign international NGO memberships and to foreign countries when we need that money right here to fix what's happening. So I'd like to know, one, how to stop that pen, or
Yeah.
how to pull the ink out of that pen.
Yeah.
Because until the money stops flowing, our country isn't going to get fixed.
Yeah, I agree. And since you brought up Randy Hillier, I can't believe that's happening now.
Right? The
Weird.
appeal. The fact that they're using Canadian taxpayer money
Yeah.
to overturn the decision or appeal his decision is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
The fact that they're doing it on Vincent Eddy's case is mind-boggling to me. You know, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, maybe the politicians who want to overturn and push the appeals and this, that, and the next thing, maybe they need to start putting up their own money. And
Yeah.
I bet we'd see less appeals on wins for the everyday blue collar guy actually stick.
Yeah.
And maybe the rule of law actually be followed if the politicians had to use their own money to appeal decisions that work for the common man.
And the good people, they want positive change. They don't want war and to storm the Capitol. They don't want violence. They want to find the righteous way to fix without harm, with doing no harm. And that's what I'm desperately searching for, answers and remedies to hopefully undo and just have these people thrown out of office, because they're really unfit to me. And all 5 parties are in on it. They all voted for Bill, C4, to
C9,
sterilize children. So we have nobody. In Ontario, we have nobody. They unanimously vote for Bill 67, which is critical race theory and DEI. So we have nobody. They're just pretending to be 5 parties.
Correct. And now we've got
Max is the only one.
Bill C-15, I believe, is the omnibus bill. And buried deep in that, there's immunity that they can grant their friends, themselves, for criminal acts. So if that is allowed, when does anybody ever get held accountable to the people for lacking in their fiduciary duties?
Yeah.
Well, on the upside to all this, as Jody just unpacked a lot of these bills and what is happening, I find it entertaining for the lack of a better word. Historically, when this type of behavior happens in politics with the introduction of these types of bills and changes that are made, it's an indicator that the power is about to be lost, the system's about to collapse. And so what do? Well, already we've seen, by actions of the federal members of parliament on the liberal side of things over the last 10 years, there's no question that there's a substantial amount of criminal behavior that's been swept under the rug. And so when things get really bad, you just have to continue to write policy or create policy that exempts your friends, exempts access to information, exempts the ability for the public to see what's really happening, and to bring about these types of restrictions. So when I see it happening, I know the end is getting closer to a collapse within this country, because the people of this nation, or any nation, can only take so much of this type of behavior. And eventually we end up with a Ceausescu type situation that happened in Romania, where things did not work out well for the leadership of that nation, and the public just put an end to that with executions very quickly. I'd hope we never see something like that in Canada, but when you can't have 2 different sets of rules in the country, one for the politicians and the legislators who are not only obfuscating, but they're stealing. They're stealing funds, they're offshoring funds. All the contracts are going out to the friends and family program. You just can't keep that up for very long before it collapses. And I wouldn't know when that collapse would be, but it's happening in law enforcement. It's happening in the judicial system. It's
Yeah.
happening everywhere. And we may not be privy to the conversations that are taking place behind closed doors, but as in the Adam Skelly case, when you start to see the decisions that are made, I'm telling you, if you ever put some of those judges on the hot seat, they'd have a lot of explaining to do, and they couldn't. So there's an obstruction of justice right there.
Agreed.
It's
Agreed.
going to happen. I strongly suspect it's going to happen. I don't think it'll happen in Canada first. I think it'll happen in the UK first.
Yes.
But when a substantial amount of police officers that I know, even active duty police officers, tell you that there's so much corruption going on within the organizations, within the judicial system, and the entire system is no longer working for the people primarily. As a Canadian citizen, whoever's watching this should be concerned. And I think maybe before we close out, and I think we only have a half an hour to go, but somewhere near the end of that half an hour, we've got to unpack some things that Canadians could do. Because the question they're left holding all the time is, well, what can I do? What can I, as an individual person, do? So I think Jody and I'll have something to say about that in half an hour.
Well, I mean, John 8:32 says the truth will make you free. And, you know, I'm searching the truth, and people like yourselves that I adore, all my guests, I like all my guests, really every single one. They all gave a little piece of, you know, what we're dealing with, you know, and in a search for a resolution and to save our fellow man, because I know we can do so much better in everything. Like policing can be done. I don't want 5 police officers emptying their clips into a guy because they don't feel comfortable. You know, assign one shooter. If there has to be a shooter and he's a dangerous man, then shoot him in the leg, or if he's got a knife, shoot him in the hand. Like, don't go for the kill, you know. I just want better standards. I want righteousness in our education, you know. I want transparency in our governance, where we can, you know, have referendums for free online and vote things and participate and become who we're meant to be. That's what my faith says to me. It says we could be so much better. We could do so many things much greater. We have sustainable products that don't, you know, designed to fail. Like there's a light bulb that was 100 years old. It still works. We can have that. We should have that. The planned obsolescence has to stop. The greed has to stop. You know?
Yeah, it's so true, Paul. There is technology that's available. So, for example, you know, the whole notion of blockchain technology and the notion of digital currency, I think a form of central bank digital currency and digital currency with digital identification and blockchain technology as prescribed by law, that it must be used, that form of currency must be used only in governments where every single penny spent can be tracked and traced. Yes. And there's nowhere for it to go because it's in this closed loop tracked blockchain system, and everybody has access to, any civilian would have access to, where are my taxpayer dollars going at any given time. But it would be prohibited from being able to use that on the civilian population. That way, you bring back control. You know, you're paying government agents, people in parliament, by blockchain technology, via digital currency that's traceable. I want to know how much money you're getting, where it's going, and that's the only kind of money you can make. And that's the price you pay for being in politics. And if you have integrity, I would do it. You know, I would.
You have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's, you can look at my accounts. You can look at my expenditures and where my money's coming from. Account. I'm okay with that, right? But
they want to look at us, but really we should be looking at them.
Right. And to utilize blockchain technology in a voting system where every civilian could look up the chart of tracking exactly how many tokens were issued based on the population, how many tokens were used, what were the names of the individuals, and this type of information has to be made available to the public. You can't just say, oh, this party won and that party lost, and that's it. There's just too much room for shenanigans, and we've seen it play out time and time again.
Oh God, yes. And look at how long it takes for this case to happen. With Adam Skelly, meanwhile, they can shut down bank accounts in 24 hours. So
Right.
I mean,
And there's no
just
Christian element to any of this, right? Like
no,
we created a Christian-based society, but there's no Christian element. And when I say Christian, I'm talking about the ways of Christianity.
integrity.
There's
Yes.
no Christian element associated to these court decisions, associated
No.
to or natural law for that matter. You know,
Yep. Yep.
what type of egregious behavior was done against who? Who's really the victim here? And when you're locked up from being able to present evidence or accept evidence, or you're concealing evidence, we're living in a very corrupt society.
Correct.
Yeah. 100%.
At some point, I want to touch on the Detective Helen Gruce situation.
Yes.
Oh God,
Maybe I
that
can
poor
unpack
woman.
that just
Oh,
5 minutes
please.
right now.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so there
Yes.
is a documentary film. If you go to grucejusticeproject.org, O-R-G, you will see on the homepage there is a trailer for a documentary film that's been produced. The film is just about finished. It's being edited right now, and it will be done by the end of May, and the film will be released the first week in June. And if you can let your audience know to check back on the website, details will be posted on the website within 2 weeks of what you can do to host a viewing, whether it's at your home, whether it's a location you want to book. If you're somebody who's willing to host a viewing fundraiser, then we will make the digital copy of the documentary available. And all you've got to do is host people at your home or at a place that you have access to. You guys can watch it. We'd expect that you would collect some donations from the attendees and then forward that on. We'll arrange to forward that on to the Gruce Justice Project to pay for the film itself. Todd Harris is the producer of the film, and it's taken a lot of effort and a lot of resources into putting this whole thing together. So her sentencing hearing is scheduled to be back in May, and she will be believed to be sentenced at that time.
It's amazing that we can sentence a police officer for actually doing their job, investigating unprecedented amount of deaths all at once. That used to be called, a serial murder. And
Yeah.
now you're not allowed to, if it possibly has to do with a political agenda, serial murdering is okay. And
Well, she wasn't conducting an investigation. She was just in the probative stage of asking questions. So when in Canada was a police officer asking questions a bad thing?
never.
Yeah.
I didn't think so.
Yeah. Come on.
Baby deaths. I thought it was commonplace, and my understanding is that there is a standard template questionnaire that police officers are supposed to go through, and police officers were not asking all those standard questions. And Helen, I believe, was a teacher of new investigators coming on, and she saw these questions weren't being answered. So she did her job by saying, "Whoa, we need to go back. We need to fill in all the blanks, because there's a lot of blanks here that aren't filled in." And that's what got her brought up.
Right.
So
to summarize,
I'm not sure what parent tuning into this episode, what parent would say, well, regardless, you shouldn't have asked those questions. When it comes to infants dying at an alarming rate, and that alarming rate was 200 to 300% increase, if that's happening and you're a parent and you've just had a child or you're about to have an infant, would you suggest that a police officer who has some grounds for asking some questions, because it's not personal questions or for the benefit of the officer, it's for the benefit of society and the safety of these infants? Who would ever think that, no, I don't think you should be asking those questions. I don't think you should have the authority to ask some of these questions. I don't know who would say no. And I don't know why you would ever not want an officer to dig as deep as possible when it comes to infants dying.
correct. Because it could have been something as simple as something in the water.
Right.
And we've had that, Walkerton, right? All these people were dying and getting sick. And just from asking those questions, thoroughly asking all of those questions, were we able to trace it back to the water source? So asking those questions, we know where it led back to: a political agenda and an experiment that Anita and signed on the dotted line for all Canadians. And that's the information they didn't want coming out, which Helen, being a proper investigating police officer, would have eventually brought it back to. And that's a real shame, because how many parents have lost children due to this hidden information that was not allowed to come out, and maybe would have taken different steps pre-pregnancy or during pregnancy to save their child.
Right. And not to switch the conversation to the Native issue, but I am going to switch the conversation very quickly because it ties in, is on the Native issue. So when it comes to the distribution of the mRNA vaccine that was being distributed since 2021, it is now, we have the documentation that it clearly indicates there were serious concerns and flags were coming out on certain batches that were being distributed. And a certain batch made it to a Native community in British Columbia. And I'm just focusing on one batch. One batch made it into a Native community, and a lot of children and adults suffered serious consequences, a lot of deaths and injury from this particular batch. Yet if we bring up, oh, and by the way, the government knew, and when the government found out about the batch issue and found out of the certain types of batches, they still went on television, and all they said was it's still safe and effective, and they never ever brought up that issue. Now there's a duty of care and responsibility that the provincial government in BC had to the public. If it was a water crisis issue, as Jody said, they have a duty to alert the population and say there's a problem with the water, don't drink the water. So they knew, and we have that documentation. Yet if we reach out to the Native community right now in BC, or a number of the people within the Native communities, different Native communities, nobody wants to respond to you. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to have that conversation. Let's not talk about it. And why would that be? You know, why is it that if you're contacting the Native communities in BC and saying Natives were predominantly harmed to a much higher degree based on this bad batch issue, and they were the first to get it? Why is that? Why is the Native community not up in arms saying, I want to know more about this? What happened? What are the details? Because we have the details. Nobody wants to know.
Well, I think it's the chiefs and councils are appointed by the government. They're the shills for the government.
I think there's an incredible amount of money that's being distributed to have people not ask questions. Like, how much money do you have to be getting? How much money are you swimming in? Do you have a swimming pool full of money that you're willing to look the other way on this issue?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And what does that do to the soul once you do know? I see a coup, completely well-rounded, from our schools to the highest office.
And we know who all the agencies are that know or that knew, that were told. We have all the emails, we have all the documentation. So if the courts want to say we're putting things away for 15 years, well, go ahead, but we have the data. We already have it. And we know who is being paid to administer that. We know how much they were getting paid. We have the billing codes, and yet nobody in our governance wants to take action. But the tide is turning. We are seeing in different nations across this world that court cases are happening, in the process of happening, and decisions are coming out, and acknowledgements are happening in different states that are calling the technology a bioweapon, that are prohibiting the distribution of that. It's coming out.
Exactly. What's interesting is, as well, you know, the Pfizer contract, they left section 5.5 unredacted, that was signed by Anita and in October 2020. And when we were going through the Pfizer contracts, we couldn't figure out why they would leave that section in particular unredacted, because that's the section that admits that it is an experiment. It's the section that admits on Pfizer's behalf that they have no idea if this is safe and effective. And yet the government didn't redact that. So that tells you they knew right from the get-go, not safe and effective. They knew that it was an experiment, so there was a huge possibility of deaths and harms that had yet to be reported, because it was still under investigation, experimental investigation, and they ran trials 1 and 2 together, and they ran 3 and 4 together, and 3 and 4 were the animals and the people all at the same time, and that was left unredacted in the document. And when I ran for federal election, I brought that document forward at a debate, and it was amazing. The audience went ballistic, yelling. They knew. They were stunned. And again, my colleagues sitting beside me, the liberals, the Greens, the conservatives, they all sat there and remained silent after just finishing telling the crowd that they planned on being transparent and full accountability, all of that. And they remained silent. So at the end of that debate, Chris and myself actually handed Philip Lawrence, the conservative, we handed John Goheen, the liberal, we handed them a copy of the unredacted document. And we said, what are you going to do with this? You knew. And Philip Lawrence was sitting in Parliament when that document was signed. So he knew all along, and yet remained silent and said nothing. We handed both the liberal and the conservative MP-elect the document. And to this day, they've remained silent. They've said nothing. They've said nothing in the House. Philip Lawrence re-won his seat. He has said nothing in the House. He has not distributed on his website. He has said nothing when he speaks to constituents. Zero. And John Goheen, he's a very nice man as a person. But again, what did he do with that document? Because I haven't heard a single peep out of the Liberals since taking power. I haven't even seen them add more money to the VISP program that they instituted for vaccine injury. Yet they still remain silent. And Anita Anand, who won her seat again after throwing all Canadians under the bus for this experimental, I don't even want to call it a medicinal
Gene
or
therapy,
because it wasn't. It was a bioweapon. She still has her seat and has given herself how many raises since October 2020? And still crickets to the people that were harmed. Not even a simple, I'm sorry. Nothing.
I give myself raises all the time, but it doesn't affect my checkbook.
0 times 0 is still 0.
It doesn't seem to be working.
No.
Oh my goodness. But I have your site here, Give, Send, Go for the Barbecue Rebellion. You can see it in the ticker there. Also, salterrafilms.com.
Films.
So you can pause the video and write all that down. So if you want to tell us about that, the film production that you're having. Oh, hello, Kelly's with us. Nice to see you, my dear friend, our sister Kelly.
Hey, Kelly. Can you please share to all the groups? Yes, please.
Oh, she's restricted for her free speech again.
We're always restricted. But, people, as been said, people need to understand what's going on with the police investigations. Good police officers are being reprimanded and suspended and fined and all kinds of things for actually doing their job. Helen Gruss being one of them. And we definitely need to help fund not only the documentary about Helen Gruss and what she's going through, but also help fund her legal fees. Because, we've had police officers who got DUIs, drunken driving in police cars, who had their legal fees represented and covered by the union. But Helen Gruss, who was actually doing her job, wasn't doing anything criminal, her legal fees were not covered by the union. So tell me how that makes any sense. So I know that there's on Vincent said the website that you can go and help donate to her legal fees. We got to start backing up and standing beside and standing behind the people who are standing up for what's fair, standing up for truth, and standing up for justice. Adam Skelly is one who is standing up for businesses. Helen Gruss is standing up for babies. And there are many, many more. Eddie and Vincent, they've got their case coming up again because the government just filed their appeal with the Emergencies Act. These are all people who put their lives on the line, who put their bank accounts on the line for truth and fairness and justice. And I don't know where this country goes to if we don't start backing these people who are willing to be the first through the gates. And I know the first through the gates always get the bloodiest, but you know what?
Yeah.
Everybody behind them are going to have the safety and comfort and convenience because of the people who went through the gates first. So we need to back them. And right now it's backing with the wallet. So the people out there who got to keep their jobs, who managed to sit back at home comfortable with their families while these people stood up, we need to back them. End of story, because nothing changes in this country unless we back the good people who are standing up and unless we get behind solutions. And as Vincent said, there's definitely solutions out there. And they're not hard ones. I know people say defund the government, stop paying your taxes. Well, I tried that. And I can tell you, because the government have the authority to come in and seize your assets, seize your bank account, seize your investments, seize whatever you own. If you're going to not pay your taxes, I strongly recommend you get rid of your bank accounts, cash in all your investments, and make sure there's nothing you own in your name, because the government will take it. And not only will they take it, now got AI that will file your taxes for you, and you're not going to like the numbers that AI presents, because I know I didn't like the numbers. Even historically speaking, those numbers were so exaggerated. And here I am several years later, still fighting to get out of that. So not paying your taxes isn't a good option unless everybody together stop paying their taxes. And I don't see that happening. But there are other solutions out there.
If they cheat in voting machines, Dominion voting machines, we don't have that either. So, and then all the immigrants are going to be paying for the ones that brought them in and are giving them $8,000 a month. But today's a special day because March 24th is Whistleblower Awareness Day, and all my guests have come here, showing us the corruption from different angles and different agencies. It means a lot to me. I mean, I'm leaving Facebook, but the show itself is just going to be on X and YouTube and Rumble. It's still it's the end of the show, but it's just a continuation on another level. I'm still going to keep doing what I'm doing. It's just that the mission of the Truth Tables is done. This is what it is right here. These beautiful people that I feel so fortunate that I got to meet. And, I feel humbled by the courage, the bravery, the integrity. It takes courage. It really does to say these things. Like Helen Gruss is a hero.
Yes.
I mean, she's a beautiful human being willing to risk it all for the babies, the children. My God, of course. That's what we do. That's what the way God created us, to care for one another, to teach our children righteousness, and to become who we're meant to be. And speaking of to become, Chris Weisdorf is going to get some 5 demerit points for tardiness for this. So he's going to get some email with some 5 points down. But I love you, Chris. I know you must.
More of a chance to talk. That's all.
That's true. You're absolutely right. He needs his own show.
We love Chris. His brain is full of so many amazing facts and historical references that it's hard to keep him on point. But what he has to say is definitely fruitful, for sure.
Oh, absolute genius. I just love his brain. He's so research. He really gets to the core of the case law and things that most people don't have time to invest in that sort of thing. People come
So,
home from
Paul,
work.
I'd like to, if I can, I'd like to. I know we only have 5 minutes left in this episode, and I'd like to throw out something to your audience, some words of wisdom um, to indicate how they can help in
Yes.
this initiative, because we talked about, giving some recommendations. And my recommendation to you is to work on your relationships. And I'm going to say that, if I'm in policing in my professional career, if you're introspective and you start asking yourself the question, what am I doing wrong? What can I do better to engage with my community, to do my job better, to be your best self? That applies with your children's relationship, the one you have with your kids. And that applies probably in one of the biggest ways in your marital relationship with your wife, with your spouse.
Right.
And if we're not introspective, we're not going to fix the problems that we're dealing with. And a lot of people don't want to look at themselves and say, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not getting this right. Maybe I need to change what I'm doing in some way, shape, or form. And when I
Yeah.
ask people, what my ask is, if you can't contribute financially to somebody's cause, somebody's court case, I ask that they go on social media, take to social media, and continue to spread the word of truth, God's truth, the truth of what we've really experienced. And some people say, I'm not very good at that, or I don't do that, or that's not my thing. That needs to be your thing. That needs to be all of our thing. I didn't
Hmm.
know Paul before I met him when he reached out to me at some point to come on this podcast.
Mhm.
But we have since honed our relationship, and here we are talking about these issues. And I need you as an individual watching this show to understand that there's a series of questions that you can ask people, and there's a methodology to it. And if you say, I'm not very good at it, then it's incumbent upon you to be good at it, to change
Hmm.
whatever it is you need to change, whatever you're doing to get good at it. If we were in a kinetic war and you couldn't hit your target, you're going to need to practice because your life's going to
Hmm.
depend on it. And hitting your target here in this war of truth, in getting your message out, my suggestion to you is a question. First of all, I would, if I'm doing something and I'm not getting through to people, I need to be very introspective and say, what am I doing wrong? And how can I make this work? If your approach isn't working, if you're not effective, you're doing something wrong. So stay with it until you get it right. And one of the methods that I use is I do, first of all, I don't get angry and I don't get aggressive, but I do want to engage and I want to have a
Hmm.
conversation. And the moment that I start talking about something and I sense that the person I'm talking to begins shutting down, then the first question I ask is, have you noticed when you first began shutting down when it comes to subjects as important as this one? And
Yeah.
then pause, because that's a very introspective question. I suggest that you fine tune your conversation to something you're passionate about. If you're a parent that lost a child or a parent that is aware of children that died, maybe you want to talk about the dangers of the vaccine. Whatever it is that is your flavor that's important, you should know it inside out. Because if you're questioned on it, if people start to show interest and start asking you detailed questions, and your answer is, I don't know, I saw it on a video and I just thought it was really important, that's not going to win anyone over. You have to be the expert in that field. You have to teach yourself, learn as much information you can on a particular subject, and stay engaged in the conversation. As I said, find a way to open that door. We all know that you're not going to start at the university level of throwing something really big and heavy out there where just about nobody's going to be able to comprehend. You're going to have to fine tune your technique, find a way to crack that conversation open, much like when you were younger and you were dating and you were looking for an introductory conversation, trying to get through to somebody or engage in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Have the courage not to shy away from the conversation, and have the courage to stay in the game. Have the stamina to stay in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave and say, I'm frustrated, I'm leaving, I'm not going to have these conversations anymore. Because you're probably right about what you're talking about. I'm sure you are, if you're aware of these issues that we're dealing with. So sharpen your pencil, stay in the game, change your technique if it's necessary, and continue engaging in this conversation. And that's how you can help.
Thank you. That's wonderful, man. I look forward to having a coffee again together. When you can. I know you keep busy, and you know how busy I am. But
Are you going to show up this time, Paul? Are you going to show up?
I know what. Yeah, like what the heck, eh? I show up like Chris Weisdorf. I show up like Chris Weisdorf.
Paul, I didn't give up. I didn't give up. I fine-tuned my conversation with somebody else in the food court and just had a coffee with somebody else.
It was destiny. But I appreciate you very much, brother. And Jody, maybe we could just talk about the films, making films.
Oh, yeah. So Chris and I, like many other people over the last 6 years, have had to recreate our who we are going forward, our professions. And we not only did we do the podcast, TFM Report, which you can follow at tfmreport.com or on Rumble, but we've also gotten into productions. We understand that media is a very strong contributor to what's going on in this world. It's a very strong contributor to who we are and what we see and what we normalize in the world. So we've decided that it's time to change what we watch on TV, what we hear on podcasts, what we listen to in music. And the only way to do that is to actually take an active role in doing so. So we have been working in the last 2 years, learning the production of movies, TV series. And Chris has written many scripts. A couple of them are actually in consideration right now to be purchased and produced, which is fantastic. But the last year, while we were waiting and learning and honing our skills, we actually filmed a TV series called Behind the Skin, which right now is at the stage of seeking out distribution. We have spoken to a couple of distributors that are very much interested in the project. And it's a project about tattoos, but it's not just about tattoos. It's about humanity and stories. And at the end of the day, whether you're black, brown, red, white, English, French, Arabic, it doesn't matter. At the core of everything, we are human beings, and we all need the same thing, and we all suffer in the same ways. And that's something that we bring out in the show, true humanity. But we also have another project coming up that we're in post-production or pre-development, not post-production, pre-development stages of. And we're going to need some funders to back that, some investors. So if you are somebody who is sitting on some cash and you want to invest that cash somewhere, we'd be happy to talk to you. My email is right there, jledgerwood@salterrafilms.com. We'd be interested in speaking to you on what an investment opportunity with Salterra Films looks like, especially given our next project. And it is a documentary project that hopefully, much like the Helen Greaves project that Todd Michael Harris is working on, will open up doors and bring some truth and some healing to a lot of people, but also change the way that criminal investigations are looked at, especially when it comes to children. So if that is something that you would like to invest in and get behind, we definitely would welcome talking to you and exploring what that investment opportunity looks like. So that is our next big project on top of TFM Report. You want to change the world? You can change it through media and what people actually watch and what they're programmed to watch. And, I was watching Bikers Church on Sunday. Unfortunately, I live too far away to attend every Sunday, so I get to watch it via, Facebook or YouTube or what have you.
Mhm.
And there was something that Pastor Rob said, and he was talking about the media that we take in. And our media right now is so entrenched in violence and horror and crime, sexuality and foul language. And
Yeah.
this is what we're taking in. Our brain is literally taking this in, and we're becoming numb to all those things. And it's becoming normalized within society. And we're seeing that, back in the day, back in the 50s, you didn't see sex on TV. You didn't see violence and blood and gore. And it was more about family values and nurturing and loving television and lessons to learn and intelligence. And somewhere along the way, the media has been bought up by all these conglomerates, these global conglomerates, and all you see now, you don't see love and nurturing and working your way through problems. You don't see nuclear families on TV anymore. And if you do, it's divorce situations. So what we're watching and what we're taking in is normalizing something outside of morals and ethics, something outside of the nuclear family, and something outside of, Christianity or nurturing of natural law philosophies. We need to change that. We need to start taking in and propagating the world we actually want to see and live in. And until we can get those messages out on mainstream media, we're going to have a really hard time in convincing people that the nuclear family is the way to go, that loving relationships are the way to go, in-person connection is the way to go, wisdom and growth and learning experiences is the way to go, empathy is an actual thing. Because until we start pushing those principles out on media, the movies, the TV, the music we listen to, we're just going to continue to get buried in filth and negativity and Satanistic type qualities. And we're going to, as we've already seen start normalizing that behavior or becoming numb to that behavior and the existence of that behavior. And, when they say you'll be happy, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, that's exactly what we're seeing propagated on our TV screens and in our music. So to go back to how you started this, will we even know the difference between happiness and sadness and fear if we never see happiness on TV? If all we're surrounded with is sadness and fear and horror and gore, how do we ever know the difference between that and love and happiness and positivity and growth? We won't. So
Yeah,
it's all
conditioning,
changing that.
brainwashing, conditioning,
Correct.
social engineering.
Correct.
So it can be done that way. But it just blows my mind that these particular scriptures are on the Parliament building, where all these people are working and using our money as they like, as they choose. We got gender neutral rice and somewhere in the world, like, what is that? Gender neutral rice, gender friendly. What the hell is going on? These people are just making things up to launder money. They're stealing the wealth of this country, making us poorer and poorer. And meanwhile, Brookfield is getting all these contracts and becoming rich. It's all right in front of our face now, but we have nobody to stop it. It's like they're almost forcing our hand to go in and arrest them ourselves. It's like, but we don't have the power to do that. We don't have the judges to enforce or the police to enforce it. It's such a unbelievable situation. But he was Vince was right. It's like we need a catalytic. Oh my goodness, catalyzing situation. 2 Samuel 23. This is on the Parliament building. 23, verse 3. He that rules over men must be just. That's on the Parliament building.
Apparently they forgot, or in all of the renovations that they've been doing on the Parliament buildings for the last 20 years, are they sandblasting that off?
Yeah, are they scratching off these scriptures now? Maybe. I
So,
mean, what are they doing? What are they digging down there?
I don't know, but Carney said, Canadian values are Muslim values. So he's forgotten that on our Parliament buildings is Christian
Yeah,
script, Christian verses. So I don't
yeah.
know.
I don't know. I read the Quran, and there's really nothing godly about that book at all. I mean, I
Yeah.
read it. I'm not against a Muslim. I would love to save them. 6-year-olds are not mentally ready to be married, and
No.
it's cruel to do that, and for him to raise his wife. That's what they believe. They believe you raise your wife. These are not Canadian values.
These
You
are
can't.
pedophilia values.
They are. I mean, we fought in Iraq, and now they have 9-year-old brides. This is what they're bringing to Canada. They've done it everywhere. They use ISIS, and so they're bringing in militants. They're paying them 8 grand a month. So obviously, we're the next Iraq. If we try to save ourselves, our leader will be the Saddam Hussein. And I feel very helpless. I have like a learned helplessness. But it's people like yourself and Vince and all of the guests I have, all of them. They all give me hope. They really do. They show
Mhm.
that they're really good people in this world and never give up. You know.
There's a lot of good people. And, I don't want to generalize and say this, all Muslims are bad, because they're
No,
not.
no,
They really, truly are not. And,
no.
I know a lot of Muslims, very good friends of mine.
Yep,
And I will tell you, they have the same fears that I have. They say they have the same values that I have when it comes to, especially
yep,
when it comes to family and children,
yep,
right? But then you've got the extremists,
yep.
much like Christianity. You have extreme
Yeah,
Christians as
Jim
well.
Jones.
Every
He killed his whole flock. Jim Jones, that's a radical. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are radical things. Leviticus, if your child is disobedient, kill them. So yeah, I believe there's good and bad and lies and truth in each of these ideologies because of the
correct,
people who wrote them, who had the power
correct,
to write them. I will be doing
and
shows on that as
that are standing at the front of the synagogues or the churches, you know, whatever it is that they're preaching, whatever it is that's in their heart, that's what their flock is hearing. So it's
well.
really, really important. And God said this: question everything, even my word, even my word, because He understands that men will sin, and men own the printing presses, so men will
Mm,
change things, and they will lie, and they will cheat. And we're
yeah,
seeing that over and over again in our parliament buildings that have Christian scripture on them. Men will
yeah,
cheat, will lie, men will line their pockets, men will
yeah,
seek out power and control. And so you need to have accountability, and you need to call out those actions. And morally, we have a duty to not only call out those call out those predatory practices, but we have a duty to act, to call out
yeah.
those as well, and not allow them to stand. So I keep saying, who is running the pen that's writing the checks? Because I want to start at your doorstep. Because the moment you stop writing those checks, we can actually get down to business and change.
Yeah, I agree. And it's important that we seek the truth. It says, "Seeking you will find," and it's true. It's very true. That's what I have found, that you do have to look under
Mhm.
every rock, under every stone. If you really care enough, you look under each stone and you'll listen to Helen Bruce and hear what she says, and realize the system itself has been corroded and corrupted to the point of no return, where they can use the police as like their own militants
Yes.
to silence us. But I appreciate your time. I would thank you so much for coming on the show, and I do wish you all the best in your film career. And
Thank you.
if you need any stars or old models from GQ magazine for the generic hospitals, the hospice GQ magazine.
I
But I
appreciate
I have to smile at the end, because we are talking about very serious things, and the implications are, you know,
we are.
daunting and heartbreaking. And really the children are going to be the victim in all of this. And so
Right.
we do need to unify. We need to unite. We need to, make a bridge for all Canadians. We have to focus on Canada. There's all kinds of things going everywhere else, but we can't really let ourselves get too distracted uh, by the politics of each country is going through the same thing. All the COVID countries are all going through the same thing. So this
Exactly.
has been a plan that's been going on for, I don't know, century,
Century.
perhaps.
But we've got
And
good people standing up. We have hope. So don't
yes,
give up hope. Don't throw your prayers down the toilets yet. Continue to
mhm,
pray. But we've got people like Adam Skelly who is standing up. And
yeah,
yes, we took a blow last week, but we are recovering and we are regrouping and we are re-strategizing. And we said right from the beginning, we knew that no matter what happened, no matter what decision Janet Leeper rendered, this would be a case that would end up in appeal after appeal right to the Supreme Court of Canada. So we were hoping that we weren't going to be the ones that would have to file the first appeal. We figured it was going to be the Crown and the city and Eileen Davila. Unfortunately, it is us that is going to
yeah,
have to appeal, and we have to appeal. We can't allow this injustice to stand, and we
yeah,
can't allow precedents of bad judges. And I don't even want to call her a bad judge because she spent so many years in the Integrity and Ethical Commission. But any
yeah,
judge that does not render a decision based on the evidence before her is a bad judge.
yeah,
They screwed up. Unless she did it on purpose.
yeah.
She
It,
did it on purpose.
yeah,
Maybe she did. Maybe she's got her own agenda going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. But at the end of the day, have hope. Know that the fight's not over. And we
mhm,
knew it wasn't going to end at this stage. We knew we were in it for the long haul, right up to the Supreme Court of Canada. But we do need everybody's help. We need them to get behind us. We need them to fund. So you can go to cccan.org and e-transfer to CCOC for freedom at protonmail.com, which is on cccan.org. So you don't have to remember that. Or you
excellent.
can just go to sendgo.com forward
Mhm,
slash BBQ underscore rebellion, which has been scrolling in the ticker tape down below.
yeah, yep.
Um, and we're keeping up, we're keeping updates on the website. We're keeping updates on the Give, Send, Go.
Mhm,
We've got Eileen Davila's cross-examination. So you can see that she refused to answer 3/4 of the question, and how that's ever allowed in a court of law is beyond me. But anyway,
yeah,
and you can read Dr. Hodges' lack of evidence statement as well. So that people can understand how wrong this judge was in rendering her decision.
I
Um,
agree. I agree. I mean, she could be compromised, uh, financially compromised, or under threat. Who knows?
Exactly.
because they're near the end of their 2030. So they will do anything and everything to ensure their outcome. So I
Exactly.
hope they fail.
But we're standing
Hopefully,
up, we're fighting, we have not given up. There's lots of good people in the world. Paul is one of them by educating
okay.
people and spreading good news and bad news. But at the end of the day, educating people on what they can do. So thank you, Paul, for being one of the good guys and putting truth out on the table.
No, I appreciate it, and I hope you will come back when we have a date for the appeals, so we can, let everyone know what's going on, and also deliver the outcome at the end, and do what we did right now. I thank you very much for being a friend, and I wish you the greatest day and future. I look forward to seeing you again and having you on the Truth Table. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Paul. I look forward to coming back again. Enjoy your day.
You too. And thank you all at home for joining me on the Truth Table. It's almost 7 days, and the Truth Table it will be ending on Facebook. They want me to do advanced security, which I'm unable to do. And I already plan to leave anyway, but they uh, do two authentication, but you need like to scan, and I don't use a mobile phone, so I won't be using that. But thank you all for joining me, episode 48. I am Paul Everton, and we'll see you tomorrow. I have I have a show booked tomorrow um, with Shane Wolf, who invented a way to have a sustainable house. He was a climate change guru. He fell for hook, line, and sewer. So he fell for the whole scam, but he came up with a solution, and because of that solution, he was attacked. Luckily, he has a lot of following, a great following, thousands and thousands of views, and I'm thankful for that because he does have a solution. If that really is a problem, and that's what men do, men are given a problem, they look for solutions, they want to resolve it, they want to fix it. That's kind of just a natural way of being. So I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for my guest today. Chris Weisdorf will get some tardy points, tardy truth table points. But I will most likely have him back on again. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!